שלום לכולם, אתם מאזינים לגיקונומי, אני דורון ניר, חג שבועות שמח, או אחרי חג שבועות שמח. אני מקווה שהפרק הזה יבוא לכם טוב, אחרי כל הגבינות של השלושה ימים האחרונים. לפני שבועיים, אני רוצה להגיד, פנה אליי חברנו היקר, השף איתמר אברמוביץ, ואמר לי, תקשיב, יש לי חבר שהוא מומחה בינלאומי לפיצה, האם אתה רוצה להביא אותו לפרק? אמרתי, כן, בטח, מה יש לי להגיד חוץ מכן, בטח, בסיטואציה כזאת? ואז הוא סיפר לי שהוא מגיע לאוסטין, וסיפר לי על אנתוני, שתכף תאזינו לשיחה שלי איתו, וככל שקראתי יותר, ככה גיליתי כמה אני באמת לא מחובר לשום דבר שקשור לתעשיית המזון, ואנתוני, שהוא מומחה בינלאומי שמעורב במאות, אולי אפילו אלפים, של עסקי פיצה ברחבי העולם, מריזורטים, מלונות, מסעדות פרטיות, רשתות וכו'. הגיע אליי הביתה בוקר בהיר אחד, ביחד עם מלווה באיתמר. התיישבנו לשיחה גם על השורשים שלו, גם על אשתו היהודייה, גם על מה זה בכלל פיצה, וגם על אננס, שזה מסתבר נושא הרבה פחות שנוי במחלוקת ממה שישראלים נוטים לדמיין. זאת הייתה שיחה כיפית ומענגת בצורה בלתי רגילה. תודה גדולה לאיתמר שהגיע מקליפורניה בטיסה מיוחדת רק כדי לעשות את הפרק הזה איתי. בסוף הפרק תהיה חפירה אישית שלי, שתהיה לכם האזנה נעימה, פרק 907 עם אנתוני פאלקו, The Pizza Czar.
Really good.
Yeah, doing good, you know.
Mostly really good.
Always glad to be back in Austin.
Anthony, how often do you do podcasts?
I try to do them pretty often. So, I mean, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 a year. You know, when my cookbook came out, I did a bunch then. But yeah, I mean, it's always fun.
I want to start with actually something that is not pizza.
Okay.
And then we'll dive into the pizza. Over the past decade, there seemed to have been created this sort of standard for the chef influencer. You need to have, you know, some food expertise or something you become known of, and then you need to have the social media presence, and you're essentially a media corporation ran by a chef. And my question to you is, when did you experience the need of being not just a chef, but also a media person in your career?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's, you know, at least for me, maybe some other chefs as well, that it happens kind of more organically than that sounds like more of like a planned thing. So for me, I mean, essentially came from someone I had a bit of a tech background, so as comparatively to the people I was working with. So, you know, I was kind of responsible for like signing up for social media and kind of getting the ball rolling on those things and like creating our online presence.
You're saying what was that hour?
Oh, like any restaurants I worked at, but specifically, you know, I started my pizza career at Roberta's, and I was spent like almost 9 years there. So that's like a big part of my story. And for that, I signed up, like when Instagram came out, I signed up myself and I signed up for the Roberta's as well.
You were the cool dude in the team that knows social media and can actually deal with that.
That's an interesting assumption that being a tech person makes you a cool dude. These were like, this was like a pizza like shop in a like old auto body garage in Bushwick, you know, with a bunch of like artist lofts everywhere. So there was a lot of cool dudes there, but it was more like, you know.
Did you know when you were younger that you wanted a career in food?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it was not on my radar as a career. I grew up here in Austin, Texas. And I needed to help out with my mom, help out with rent and stuff like that. So as soon as I could work, I started working. So I think it was like 14 here.
Oh.
And
I didn't know you were even allowed to work at 14.
I think, yeah.
I'm sending my son to work.
Yeah, no, I mean, my son will be working next year too.
Really?
14,
Nice.
yeah, for sure. So I worked at a drugstore.
Like a clerk?
Yeah, like a cashier, you know.
Okay.
And like one of the things you had to do is something called facing, and so when you go to a drugstore and you see like a line of products, like you need like a pain medication or something, right? And there's like all of the boxes of them. Someone, like when people come and look at them, they look at them and they shuffle them up. And so part of your job, if you work there,
To keep the face of the
yeah,
boxes.
you line up all the faces. I mean, if you can think of a more like dystopian kind of corporate in like dumb thing to be doing with your life.
That's the Charlie Chaplin equivalent of just twisting the bolts on the machine every single day.
And like the playlist, because I mean, when you're going to a drugstore, you're in there for like 4 or 5 minutes, getting your thing, and you leave. So the company, they have to pay royalties on the music they play.
Okay.
In a store.
Yeah.
Right. ASCAP.
Yep.
So their playlist was like 10 songs long.
So they won't have to play.
So yeah, exactly. So over the course of your day in this drugstore, it's this, like I could time my watch to the next John Denver song to come on.
Oh my God.
So, all those things added up and to like I wasn't cut out for retail. And then my second job was at a restaurant, and I really liked the people. I liked the atmosphere. I loved
the energy.
Energy. I loved like the creative aspect of it. I liked that the playlist was better.
We live in a time where kitchen people and people from the restaurant business are cultural heroes.
Yeah.
By definition. And now you're starting to see the TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
The Bear. We have one in Israel.
The Cook?
Yeah, The Cook that became very successful in the last 2 years. And it's like a thing. They were never, people from the catering business were never cultural heroes.
No.
When we were growing up, we're roughly the same age, but it was like you had LA Law, everybody wanted to be a lawyer. There was ER, everybody wanted to be a doctor. Now catering and chef.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I mean, I remember like when the Food Network first became a thing, and it was like Emeril and these guys, and it was
Bobby Flay.
Yeah, or the original Japanese Iron Chef. I really liked, but it was a little niche, it was like it wasn't for everybody. It was not. I mean, I think it wasn't like the mainstream. I really liked it, but yeah, I mean, I worked at restaurants, and if you had asked a young version of me what they were going to do for a career, it would have been like animation or tech or video games or something. That was like the main, or film and TV. Those were the things that I really was most interested in.
Did you study that in high school, or I mean, were you lining yourself up to go to that place?
Yeah, so like for people of our age, like that at the very end of Gen X, like in our 40s, like if you like when we got a computer room, like the teachers asked us to set it up.
Yep.
Like we were.
They still do, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
They know slightly more, but with our kids, they still do that.
Yeah. So I mean, that was for me. I kind of fell into that group of and growing up here in Austin, and specifically in West Austin, there was a lot of kids who their parents worked in tech. Like my family had no relation to tech whatsoever. So I started kind of getting in touch with these kids whose dads were programmers, like old school, like Cobalt and like, really
Fortran.
Yeah, exactly. So like, and they worked at IBM or Cimatech or something like that. So I started like, getting in with that crowd and hanging out with them because I wanted to play video games. And back then you couldn't just buy a game. I see you on your shelf here, you have Falcon 4.0. I remember very clearly buying the game and then getting an error, like you don't have enough memory, and then you have to go into DOS and like kind of reconfigure your memory, or like go go to the store, Circuit City, and buy some memory and then install it, open up your case.
Yep.
I had like a 486, and you had to buy a graphics card, you had to buy a sound card.
Yeah. It grew from the Circuit City crowd. It grew from, being passionate about electronics and putting stuff together. And then it became building computers. I think Apple was actually the first one that said, no, this is supposed to be for everyone. The computer comes as a box, nothing. Yeah. Nobody opens it ever.
Yeah. But if you were serious about games, Apple not it.
Yeah.
No, they were not it back then. I mean, I remember it's like Civilization was like the only game that worked on my Apple computer, but I got my own little gaming computer. That's what I was really into. Like there was, some gaming studios here in Austin. Origin Studios was based out of here. Like I remember doing like some testing where you go to like the mall and they paid me like $25 to man. And I was like, this is the coolest thing that's ever happened.
Yeah.
But I ended up graduating high school, 98. I left Austin as soon as I could. I was going to go to college. I got accepted to NYU, but there was a financial reality kind of struck that like the tuition was more than like the gross domestic product of our household. So like it was just wasn't going to happen. I didn't want to I didn't want to stay in state.
You didn't want to drive your parents broke because of college?
I mean, I didn't. We didn't have enough money to even go broke, like to go into debt. Like we didn't have enough. There was not enough down payment to even like take out the loans.
Yeah,
And at some point, I was like, all right, I'm just going to take a year and travel and figure some stuff out. And I kind of couch surfed around. I ended up in Seattle, and was working. I got a job immediately as a dishwasher, which is still one of my favorite jobs in the restaurant industry.
Why?
I start my morning every day.
I mean,
I did some dishwashing before you guys came.
Yeah,
at my wife's request.
So I really liked being a dishwasher at that stage when I was young because everyone's nice to you because they don't want you to quit. And then it's like a very satisfying amount like work where you see something, it's this pile of dirty dishes, and then you work really hard and you clean them, and then you clean the dishes, and then you clean the dish station, and it's all like it's very tangible.
It's complete.
It's the best feeling in the world. Leaving it. Wow, I love that.
Yeah, and then I did prep, and I liked being able to listen to like NPR and like just or whatever music I wanted to listen to by myself, and just be up there in the room by myself doing prep, and then go downstairs and do dishes, and then like like if you don't like the family meal, they'll make you something off the menu, like because they want you to. Nobody else wants to really do dishes, so they want to treat you really well, and then there's not like the stress of tickets or anything like that. I mean, it's a low responsibility job with like a lot of satisfying kind of work, if that's like the kind of thing you're into. So
how long did you do that?
So I did that for a couple years. Well, maybe it was like a year, and then I moved to this pasta restaurant and I started cooking pasta. It was like a pasta chain restaurant, and
what do you mean, like Italian
fast casual pasta? So it was a guy from Italy, and he wanted to do like fast casual pasta, which I think is kind of we can talk more about this, but I think it's a white whale of a business model. Like everyone thinks that like, oh, pasta's got great margins. Everyone loves pasta. Let's do a fast casual pasta, but it's a bad idea.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I think if you look at the most successful fast casual brands, there's something that works really well for lunch.
So wait, calibrate me a little bit on what defines fast casual. Is Chipotle fast casual?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, fast casual is like, I guess, a nicer way of saying fast food.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's everything. It's not like a sub-genre.
It has to do with the service model, so you there's no, it's not full, as opposed to a full service restaurant.
Is Hop Dottie fast casual, or is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Full service is when you have a server, comes, takes your order, food comes to your table.
So anything
that doesn't have a server is fast casual or fast.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a big spectrum.
So why is it not good for pasta?
Well, and this is going to be a good segue into pizza. Why pizza is a good business model for the restaurant industry is for pasta. It's not a great lunch item. Like a lot of people,
because you go into a coma.
Yeah, basically. Okay. Yeah, I mean it's I think that and some of that is cultural, but I think a lot of people are looking for something that's like maybe, some protein with a little, like more of a mix of protein and carbs, whether it's like a burger or chicken. Pizza has the same issue for lunch. It's not a strong lunch player.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is the value perception. So, people love to go out to like special occasions, romantic dinners and things and get pasta. And they're looking for something that is maybe like a more of a quality proposition than a value proposition. And so they're looking for handmade pasta or, just pasta that's done. I mean, when you have great pasta,
fresh.
Yeah. I mean, it can be dried pasta, but it can also, and be done really well, but fresh pasta as well. Is something that is, you're not competing with a home chef with like, dry pasta that's, basically like simple and cheap. Your average cook, like your bachelor who knows nothing about cooking, can make pasta. It's like the first thing people learn how to do is like a box of macaroni and cheese or a jar of sauce and dry pasta. So, there's not a lot of like value perception in like, especially when you have the price that's lower. When you're charging $20 for pasta, then it's like, well, this must be something special.
There were attempts. I mean, in Israel, I remember Sbarro, which was for a while relatively successful. For a while. I don't know. Did Sbarro succeed in America as well?
Yeah, I mean, so Sbarro's a really interesting case of being the largest pizza chain that actually has like Italian immigrant roots to it, as opposed to just like a business person.
Yeah, they were also positioning themselves as a lot more than pizza. Pizza was usually like maybe 15% of the display.
Yeah, it started as a
salads.
deli.
Okay.
Yeah, it started as a deli in Bensonhurst, Sicilian immigrants.
Okay.
And they had a huge deli with prepared foods and, sandwiches and everything. And then the pizza, they started selling pizza because everyone was crazy about pizza in the 50s and the 60s. And so they added pizza and they expanded with pizza, but they always had that kind of like, the pasta in the warming trays and things like that. But yeah, it was really big in America in the 80s because they went all in on mall food courts. And that was a big, cultural moment in the 80s, like was the mall.
Yep.
And then the food courts. And then their fortunes kind of were tied with malls and food courts. And
so malls died and Sbarro died with it.
So Amazon killed Sbarro?
Yeah.
I mean,
the shift of suburban back to like urban redevelopment, like, I mean, this is a lot of it, like, a lot of interesting touch points there.
But I want to go back to you. So you were in this pasta joint.
Yeah, cooking pasta.
How old were you?
19.
Okay, so this is like the beginning of your career. First time in an Italian food place?
I mean, first time cooking professionally Italian food.
And you're not dishwashing anymore?
Yeah, no, I'm not dishwashing. So, I mean, I am like Italian American, so American of Italian descent on my dad's side. So they were all farmers from Sicily.
Okay.
Immigrated to New Orleans, came to Texas. So there's north of here, there's the Brazos River Valley. There was a lot of Sicilian immigrants farmed that land.
Nice.
So that was like my grandparents, great grandparents.
What do you know the year they came here?
Like the 1890s.
Wow. Okay. So they were. I mean, that was pretty.
I'm like fourth generation Texan. Yeah,
that's really impressive.
Yeah,
I don't know a lot of fourth generation Texans.
No, I mean, you probably haven't. How many people have you met were born in Austin?
Young people mostly.
Yeah, exactly.
But not my second, third generation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dude,
there was like 200,000 people when I was born.
The city that I live in right now, which is like 100,000 people, is was only incorporated in 92. Before that, it was just one big ranch.
Yeah. No, I know.
Yeah.
This is like...
You grew up here.
Yeah. Where the restaurant I'm working on here right now is on Airport Boulevard.
Yep.
And they call that Central Austin now. Like Burnett and Airport and all that.
That was the edge.
That was north. And then above Research, which is now 183... That was just, it was farms. It was ranches.
Yeah.
You know?
It's becoming a metro area. So that's...
Oh, I mean, I just drove to the farm where my dad and my grandma live now in Kyle. And, you drive from Austin to San Antonio and it would be like, you get out of Austin and then there's like just
nothing for
ranches and like occasional gas station. And then you're in San Antonio.
Yeah.
There was the snake farm, which was like a tourist trap on the way to San Antonio off I-35. And there was, now it's like essentially one conurbation.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the at least the projection is that the Austin San Antonio corridor is going to become like the Bay Area from San Francisco to San Jose. It's roughly the same distance.
Yeah. It's or the Dallas Metroplex.
Yeah.
So I'm cooking pasta professionally. I have like an Italian American kind of background, but so I have kind of just an internal passion for the food. And then the owner was from Italy, great guy, but he had this idea of like this was a concept that was going to be able to scalable and make a lot of money. And eventually I think it closed. I mean, I think it's definitely closed, but we started doing web design at that time. And we were just doing it
for the restaurant.
No, we were just doing it at home for fun. Okay. We were playing with Flash a lot.
Okay.
And so we started a web development company that was like focused on Flash. And specifically at the time, everyone was using Flash just to do like intros and loading pages.
Yep.
And we thought that we could connect Flash to databases and create user interfaces, graphical,
dynamic websites.
Yeah. So we were some of the first people to do dynamic Flash websites.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. And then at some point I had a realization that I hated it. And I wanted to go. You
hated what? The coding? The working on a computer?
Just like I was on the creative side. So the visual side, graphic design, visuals more mine. So I was never really a coder. I do HTML and CSS, but that's that extent, which is markup. It's not coding.
Yeah. You can do it, but you don't want to do it.
No,
so you never got good at it.
Yeah, exactly. I was more into the animation side of it, and just I still use Photoshop, Illustrator all the time. That's kind of more my core competency. Okay. But just the tech world. I mean, the big thing for me was this idea that people were often kind of going with whatever the trends were in order to make a company and then sell it and make money. Yep. And always talking about what are they going to exit strategy and what are they going to do when they make their money. And my realization was that life is like right now. And what if you don't like what you're doing and you have this image of I'm going to sell my company and then I'll go skiing all day and then I'll go surfing or I'll move to here or whatever. And my realization was today is the day. Do live your life exactly what you want to do. And I was just happier when I was a cook, and I was happier with those people.
Did you develop that realization by yourself, or did you have? Because it sounds pretty profound to understand that as a 19-year-old.
Yeah,
I remember myself at 19, mostly full of fear and concerns about what's going to happen next. Not so much trying to develop my own,
It took me until about 21, I think.
Okay.
To figure that out. And there was definitely some outside influences, some kind of tragic occurrences in my family. I had the loss of loved ones.
Okay.
And it was a moment of kind of reckoning.
Well, life is short kind of thing.
Exactly. That was it.
Absolutely.
And I went on a year-long sabbatical, and I traveled around the world, and then I, kind of decided that I was going to dedicate myself to the hospitality business, and at 21. And it wasn't for another few years till I kind of found out that pizza was the thing that was really my calling. And that was mostly because of the wood oven. I just became obsessed with the wood ovens.
Are fucking awesome.
there's something there.
Yeah, it's like the cauldron. It's like there's a fireplace thing.
There's the aspect of being fascinated by fire that we all are.
I mean, that's like a million-year-old genetic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then and we were talking about it on the way, there's a skill element that can be honed and worked on and perfected to trying to get it to mastery of understanding how fire and oven work. For me, I was cooking on a wood fire yesterday. I was cooking on a forno piombo last night, and it was awesome.
There's a phrase that a good friend of mine taught me, and I think it originally comes from Russian, but I'm not sure. It goes, there are three things that people can watch indefinitely. And those three are a burning fire, the flow of water, and another person working. And wood ovens have all of them.
Yeah. Yep. Just get a wood oven next to a river. And you're
Dude,
set.
it's the same thing with the stir fry. Stir fry with the water that's flowing on the side and the massive fire that they have in the middle and the person.
Yeah.
I can just watch this for hours.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's not a TikTok category as opposed to
and there's
carpets.
also that the things you can achieve with high heat, like the way a vegetable cooks in like super high heat where you can get caramelization and kind of charring on the outside but keep structure and texture on the inside. It's like you just can't do that.
You don't do that at home cooking.
In home cooking, yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, because you talked about having Sicilian roots and 4 generations in Texas. There's a category of Ashkenazi Jews that moved to South America and then eventually ended up in Israel.
Okay.
And they have a very unique kitchen because it's both Ashkenazi food, which is usually, gray and cold and doesn't have a lot more than salt.
Yeah.
And then they brought the South American influence of barbecue and asado and everything. What does Texan Sicilian kitchen look like in home cooking from your perspective? What did you grow up with?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, and it was all home cooking. There was no let's go down to Little Italy and get. We never ate out. Like occasionally we would go to Houston, and there was some good restaurants there, and we had cousins there, and it's more of a community there. There's my grandma would tell stories about when they were kids. They would get in the car and drive to Houston and load up the car with pecorino, parmigiano,
because that's where
dry
it was
pasta,
important.
The staples, they were there. And then, but everything else was about what you grew around you. And so like my grandma's
cheese, no Parmesan.
Well, you have to go buy that. Yeah.
Okay.
There's no production of that there. So, and, mozzarella was not really a thing in Sicilian cooking anyways back then.
Okay.
So the thing, I guess that some of the fusion things that were different were like, my great grandma used to make this like okra and potato and onion dish, which I don't know if they have okra in Sicily.
I don't think they do.
No,
not that much.
Like my grandma's meatballs, all beef, just as I was in Texas. Just, it's like there's a lot more beef around. I think, this, like spice levels, were probably a little higher than normal.
Just on the salt and pepper.
Like chilies and
chili
things.
too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, just from being in Texas, and people become accustomed to spicy food.
What was the tomato structure? Was it just canned, or did you grow? Or
so I don't. By the time that I remember, being in my grandmother's kitchen, great grandmother's kitchen, they were using canned tomatoes.
Yeah.
But they had done what a lot of Italian Americans did, which was in tomato season, buy bushels of tomatoes or grow what they can and then jar them themselves and keep them in the basement. So
really?
That was something,
So
and
you
also
had
I remember
jars of tomatoes from your grandmother in the basement.
And then there was things like gagutza we would grow.
What is that?
So gagutza is like this squash that's like from Sicily. That's about a size of a person, 6 foot tall.
Do you know what that is?
I have no idea. I'm every time I see Anthony, I learn something. So I'm being quiet and absorbing.
Yeah. So they would grow a lot of things that they brought they wanted to have with them, and one of the things that they had seeds for was gagutza. So gagutza is like, and it's when it was gagutza season, it was a big thing. We'd go to my grandmother's house, and there were like they cook it with, it's like a stew with onions and tomatoes.
Okay.
Is it fleshy like
it's like a fleshy kind of almost like a
butternut squash or
no, it's
pumpkin?
soft. It's like almost
Soft,
like a
okay.
zucchini.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and they grow it on a trestle because otherwise it curls up. But if you put it on a trestle, then it
just
will
hangs.
hang and it'll
Okay.
get like 6 feet tall. And you won't see. I remember you don't see it much here except for in New Orleans.
Dude,
and
even Google doesn't know what it is.
Well,
how do you spell it? I'm trying G-U-G-U.
No. So that's the Sicilian pronunciation. They turn
It's like
C's
a Bahul, it's actually something.
they turn the C's into G. So it's C-U-C-U-Z-Z-A. And I have a picture of my dad actually with it, growing it.
Okay. It is a summer squash.
Can I see?
Yeah. It's a summer squash.
Oh wow.
It's big. And
It has very thick skin.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you have to, and then that's why you have to stew it to soften that skin.
So wait, you chop it, you cook the whole thing?
No, you chop it into chunks.
Okay.
And then you get some onions going, some garlic, olive oil. Then you throw your gagutza in there, and you get that kind of, little color on the outside of it. And then you throw all your tomatoes in, and you then simmer for.
Okay. I would just, frankly, being in Texas and I would just smoke it probably for a couple hours.
Dude, it sounds a bit like gevetch. Do you know what it is?
Yeah, gevetch and ratatouille are the same thing.
Yeah. It's like a Texan ratatouille.
Texan Sicilian ratatouille.
Sicilian
Yeah,
ratatouille.
basically. And then the other thing was fava season when that was happening. That was a big thing. And then San Giuseppe was a big one, and they still have a big San Giuseppe festival in like in the Brazos River Valley, like in the what was the name of that town? But College Station. So in College Station, they have a big San Giuseppe festival. Bryan, Texas, which is near College Station.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of Sicilians there. San Giuseppe or Saint Joseph is the patron saint of a lot of Sicilian towns and parts of Sicily. And one of the miracles that occurred was there was a famine, and someone found a jar of dried fava beans, and that was like miraculously. And so they made this pasta, and it's breadcrumbs and fennel and
fennel seeds, or
so you take the whole fennel and you boil it in water, and then you cook the pasta in the fennel water, and then you drain it all together. And then that's a
poor man's food.
Yeah, and then rice and beans and fava.
Okay.
And then breadcrumbs if you don't have any cheese.
Okay.
Because Sicilians use breadcrumbs a lot when they ran out of cheese to give the same kind of texture. And so that was a big thing. Every March, we would go there and have pasta San Giuseppe.
Interesting.
And they have a big, and then Sicily in New Orleans, they'll do it with pasta con sarde, which is like when you're closer to the ocean.
Sardines.
Yeah. Breadcrumbs and sardines
and
onions and tomatoes. So for San Giuseppe Day.
Do you, when you had that food as a child, did you appreciate it, or was it like, why can't I have McDonald's like normal American kids?
Yeah, so there's two parts of that story that are for our childhood that it gets complicated very quickly. And one is that my dad became kind of a hippie in college when he moved to Austin and went to UT. And he became he was raised Catholic. He was like a choir boy, all that. But at some point, he became a hippie and a Buddhist and a vegetarian. So I was actually raised vegetarian. I didn't until in my 20s. I didn't have actually my grandmother's meatballs and all this stuff. I had to play catch up with a lot of these old recipes, and luckily got them before, it was too late. But when we grew up, there was always a couple different. There was the vegetarian table and then the non-vegetarian table. So, it was. So one of the things that my great-grandmother would make that I loved was she called it pizza, and my dad tells this story. It's really interesting, actually, is that they had never heard the word pizza before, and they didn't speak Italian at all. They only spoke Sicilian, because when they left in 1890, Italy had only been a country for like 20 years. So like they had the Italianization process of like standardizing the language and the education system that had not happened yet. They only spoke Sicilian. Like my grandma, I just visited her yesterday. She was talking about her trip to Italy, and she's like, I couldn't understand. She's 90.
Wow.
Something. 90.
Good for her.
Yeah. And she's talking about, I went to Italy. I couldn't understand anything they were saying. And, and so they only spoke Sicilian. And so no one had ever heard of pizza until like Shakey's came to town and Waco. And then it was like, why you got to go out and get the pizza? I can make you pizza. And she would call it, it was like a sfincione, which is like a Sicilian kind of square. It's like grandma pizza. It's in a sheet tray. And it's got a lot of tomato and onions. And she would put breadcrumbs and olives.
More like a focaccia.
Yeah, it's like a focaccia. Yeah, exactly. But and so she would make that, but I wanted, Pizza Hut,
Yeah.
And it was like... That's like the duality of my pizza experience.
I think for every kid.
Yeah, exactly.
It takes a while until you realize that all the very sexy fast food of your youth is just shit compared to the good stuff that was made at home.
But I luckily was, never had McDonald's, never had, KFC or any of these, Burger King. I never had any of that. The only fast food we were allowed to eat was Taco Bell.
And you don't have any emotional scars with that. You were fine with that.
No, yeah. I mean, it was like I believed, in Austin, actually, you weren't like a total weirdo if you were a vegetarian. It was a very hippie, vegetarian friendly town. I mean, it still is when you go to restaurants. It's a big thing. Like I remember when I moved to Seattle, it was like, this is like, not as friendly to this lifestyle as it is in Austin. But, so yeah, I mean, that's like a childhood memory of those two things, Pizza Hut and then that original grandma pizza.
So fast forward, you're 21, you figured out that this is what you want to do for life. How do you decide that pizza is the direction?
I didn't for a while.
I want to, before you answer, something happened around pizza in the last couple of decades that didn't exist before. I mean, everybody loved pizza for as long as I can remember, but it was never in the level of connoisseur food that it is right now. Now you have, fine tuning and fine dining around pizza that never existed before.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so I will fast forward past just working different restaurants and then coming to Roberta's and like learning the wood oven. And then after that, I'm a pizza consultant now. So I have a business with my wife. We do full service consulting, restaurant consulting. The majority of what we do is pizza. That's what I'm known for. Although occasionally we'll do more just Italian or Italian American food.
Is it like Kitchen Nightmares where you come to a restaurant and you
don't do a lot of that? No.
Okay.
It's mostly all setting concepts up from the beginning.
Okay.
We work with large hotel restaurant groups. We work with small founders, but mostly we work with operators who are, they're in the industry. They want to open a pizza place and they want it to be as good as it possibly can be from the ground, from day one.
Okay.
So we'll do kitchen design, sourcing, menu creation, and then I'll go on site and do on-site training. Yeah, I don't do a lot of like restaurant rescue stuff. And so the life cycle is at like a year or two or something like that. So, I get it all designed, create everything, and then go on site and train people and do the recipes. And I do New York style, Neapolitan, Detroit, Sicilian, focaccia, like the whole gambit.
I know what everything you just said mean, except New York style.
Yeah.
I mean, because in Israel, New York style is not a thing, at least not that I'm aware. But what is a New York? Yeah, what is a New York style pizza?
Okay, so let's like just track this all the way, like to its like like a genetic origin. So pizza is from Naples.
Okay,
and if you talk to a Neapolitan, it is one thing only, and everything else is not pizza.
Okay.
Americans are very open-minded. If you put sauce and cheese on something, it's pizza. You pizza fries, pizza bagels. You can pizza anything.
Yes.
That is not the case in Naples.
Pizza is, for Americans, and actually I think for Israelis as well, is the combination of carb, usually bread, but it can even be other carbs, tomato sauce and cheese on top.
Yeah.
That if you have these three ingredients, everything is a pizza.
Yeah. So in Naples, it's very specific. So it's, a dough that's on the higher hydration side. It's just flour, water, salt, and some kind of leavening, either natural leavening or a small amount of yeast. Usually a longer fermentation, 24 hours, 48 hours, something like that. And it's cooked in a wood oven, very high temperature to create like a 60 to 90 second bake. And then it's
90-second bake. How hot does the oven need to be?
It's where you're cooking the pizza is anywhere from 800 to 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah.
Which would be the equivalent of 400 to 500?
About
400.
450, 400.
Yeah, 450 would be the top. I think.
Celsius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's stretched by hand.
You can't achieve that temperature with a home oven.
No.
Okay.
No, impossible.
Okay.
So it's stretched by hand. It's topped. The minimally, one of the original pizzas is a marinara, and that's just tomato sauce, garlic, oregano, olive oil, and
my favorite.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best. And then it's slid directly onto the stone surface of the dome oven, where it's a black oven as opposed to a white oven, there where the fuel source is in the same chamber where you're cooking the bread.
What is a white oven?
Where there's a separate chamber.
Okay.
For a coal oven is going to have a separate chamber for the coal, and then that heat is going to go into the baking chamber.
Okay.
And so the wood is in the same area. You're cooking across from the wood, and you're cooking it quickly, and then it's meant to be eaten individually. It's a one pizza for one
personal
person.
Pizza.
Yeah, it's a personal pizza.
Yeah.
And that's Neapolitan pizza. And then the margaritas with bufala mozzarella. And then there's another list. But the marinara and the margarita are kind of on everyone's. Even the most minimalist pizzeria is going to have those two pizzas. Yeah. So then starting in the 1890s, or after the Italian unification, actually, you have one of the largest migrations in human history. It comes out of southern Italy from Sicily to Calabria and to Campania. They start spreading around the world. They mostly are going to the United States, Canada, Mexico, in North America, and then they're also going to Brazil and Argentina in South America, also Venezuela in pretty good numbers. And so in these places, you have the first wave of pizza outside of Naples. And if you in 1920, if you wanted a pizza, okay,
in America,
in the world, if you wanted a pizza in the world in 1920, you could go to Naples, okay, you could go to New York, Trenton, New Jersey, you could go to Sao Paulo, and you could go to Buenos Aires. If you went to Milan, they wouldn't know what the hell you were talking about.
Really?
If you went to Venice, they wouldn't know what you were talking about. If you went to Palermo, they wouldn't know what you were talking about.
Interesting.
So there was no pizza. Now you can get a pizza everywhere in Italy.
But in the world, I would say.
And they all have their own style. Like Roman pizza is...
Yeah. And Roman pizza even is doesn't come about until that time period. Roman pizza only really becomes popular in mid-century, as like a widespread thing.
Was it considered non-classy food?
Yes, it's definitely poor people food.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you hold it in the hand or you don't...
Because it's carbs, it's just belly filling stuff,
Okay.
There's maybe there's some anchovy on there or there's cheese. I mean, rich people eat meat,
Yeah.
So it was, it was a street food, people, they something called pizza portfolio where you basically take the pizza, you fold it up into four corners and you eat it with your hands. It was very much a cuisine of the working class or even the peasant class. But what happened when immigrants came to, these large metropolitan areas, a lot of people were working in factories, textile mills, something like that. So there was bakeries were there to serve the immigrant community. And the bakeries also started selling pizza. but it was really just confined to the immigrant communities. And so that style, though, it starts to evolve based on a couple different things. It's really been interesting for me. We're having worked in Buenos Aires, having worked in Sao Paulo, is how the styles change from, because there's not a daily flight back,
Yeah.
so there's a game of telephone starts to happen. Like they have a memory of something they made, and then it starts to evolve. So in New York and New Jersey and New Haven, instead of wood-fired ovens, they started using coal ovens. And that's because the coal companies would build you an oven for free for your bakery if you signed a long-term coal delivery contract. And a coal oven is going to operate at a much lower temperature, still very high temperature, like 700, 600. And so the pizza takes longer to cook. So it stops being more of a quick individual thing. And so the pizza, you need to cook a bigger pizza to kind of serve more people because it's going to take longer. So that pizzas start to get bigger. They start to get crispier because they're baking longer. And then the cheese has to evolve, because if you have this super fresh, moist mozzarella and it's in a long term in the oven, it's going to just over melt.
Yeah.
So then you start having this low moisture mozzarella gets developed. And then Frank Mastro invents the gas deck oven. So in New York City, these coal ovens are massive. There's people want to put pizzerias everywhere, but they can't, they can't be building these big coal ovens everywhere. So this guy, he's like, has this idea of like, I'm going to build this compact oven with gas burners underneath it. And then, but that's even lower temperature than coal oven. So now you're talking like 575, maybe 600 degrees max, right? And so then the pizza has to get even bigger. And now they're selling it by the slice, so they can take one pizza to serve 8 people, as opposed to making an individual pizza and you have to wait 15 minutes for your pizza. So, and then that temperature gets lower. So then you can't be using fresh mozzarella anymore at all. So now it's all aged mozzarella and
much drier.
Yeah, exactly. So that it can hold up to that longer cook time.
So essentially what you're saying, that what we knew as kids in Israel and is now the standard for fast food pizza across the world is a lot more New York pizza than anything else.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
So, all right. So you're still in New York, you're still in this Italian-American community. The New York slice thing is still, it's something you find in, Bensonhurst and the Little Italy. And it hasn't jumped into the mainstream, right? So post World War II, pizza starts to like get into the larger, outside the immigrant community, jump into the larger mindset. Okay. And so what happens then, you have something like the Carney brothers who start Pizza Hut.
Okay.
Okay. And so they essentially come out of college with like a franchising, because franchising is also in the 50s becoming a big thing. And it's people are franchising burger concepts. And at some point these guys go, okay, well, we need to franchise something. And there's a lot of burger places already. What are we going to do? Oh, I heard about this thing called pizza. Well, how do you make pizza? I don't know. So they just kind of made it up. And then what happens is these people have there's no picture of, nonna, like on the wall looking down at them saying like, this is the tradition. This is the way we make the pizza. It's the same. They
have no respect.
Well, that's one way of saying it. Yeah,
they have no respect.
To them, it's like tech, and it's open for iteration.
Yeah.
Right.
Do whatever you need.
So the original Pizza Huts and Domino's, they are basically they're founded in the Midwest by people with no actual like connection to the Italian culture or the immigrant experience. But pizza is there's more people that want pizza than there are Italian people making the pizza. So people need to start making pizza. So they start making pizza the same way that they're using these New York gas deck ovens, right? And you have to stretch it out and then you slide it on. But that's takes some skill. At some point, someone invents a conveyor oven. And that is what I would call modern chain pizza that's found all over the world. And that's probably what you had growing up. And it's like you have
So actually, no. In Israel, most pizza places, there's an oven that you put the pizza
four
in.
decks.
Yeah, okay. Like a 3-4 deck. I'm assuming it was important for Italy, because usually I remember seeing an Italian name on it.
Interesting.
But it was like...
it might just be an Italian name. not Italian made.
But it was electric. It was not
Electric?
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it was gas.
I think it was gas.
It was gas.
Yeah, electric ovens are really hard to find.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it didn't look like there was gas anywhere. When you
It's under the gas
brick.
chamber is under the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
it's
you
under
just
the
don't
bricks.
see it.
Yeah, you don't see
But
it.
it's like a this wide.
Yeah. A deck oven. It's like what Frank Mastro invented.
Yes.
But they're related to bakery deck ovens as well.
So these were the pizzerias of our youth because we didn't have fast food pizza.
That's interesting.
Domino's.
You didn't have that.
Domino's
Okay.
and Pizza Hut only came in my 20s or late
Okay,
teens.
so who's making these pizzas?
It's first of all, it's Israelis.
Yeah.
And I assume that these are...
But so you have Israelis from all over the world, right? Coming there. Like,
Yes.
You have Russians and South Americans, like you're saying. And
yes.
So are some of these from New York? And they're like, hey,
So I can tell
I miss
you...
pizza. Let me make some pizza.
The main pizza of my childhood,
Uh-huh.
there were two places. I grew up in a city called Haifa
Okay.
in Israel. There were two pizzas. The first one was called Popolo.
Okay.
That was a pizzeria that was
people.
founded by an ex-Ashkenazi Argentinian family
Okay.
that migrated to Israel, and they knew how to make Italian food Argentinian style.
Yeah, which
And-
is
and-
I'm a fan of. I like it.
The pizza was like that. So I assume that.
But so in in Buenos Aires, they have something called pizza porteño. And it's like porteños are people from Buenos Aires, and that's their style of pizza. But they cook it in a pan, and it's thick crust, and it's a absurd amount of cheese. It's almost like
that was
Pizza
the
Hut.
pizza.
Okay, and it's in the pan.
Yes.
And they take it out, and
Yes.
then it's like oregano and olive, and
That was it.
yeah. Did they?
They had a stack of pans already with
Yeah.
the dough.
Okay, that's fucking fascinating. Sorry, excuse my language.
No,
But this was the main pizza of my childhood.
Yeah.
And another one was pizza that was baked in a square tray.
Okay.
Very similar approach, but they would cut it to squares.
Yeah.
And that was in the downtown area where
Okay.
we used to go to cinemas.
And where were those people from?
I have no idea. They were Arabs, actually.
Okay.
They were Israeli Arabs that somehow learned how to make pizza.
One of my early
and that was called
earliest.
Rimini.
Okay.
I don't know. Rimini is an Italian place.
Yeah.
Does this ring a bell to you?
So I'm 10 years younger than you.
Yes.
So there is the pizza of my youth
Yes.
was a New York style pizza in a deck oven on a metal pan
Okay.
that was cut into squares. Dough kind of crispy. Too many toppings.
yeah.
And slices that were about... I mean, it was always like, oh, I ate half a pizza, and as a growing kid, half a pizza was a lot.
Yeah.
So that's the pizza.
It wasn't chain.
It was
local
small.
or was
It was
it chain?
small local chains. Like
Okay.
there was pizza Domino, not Domino's. Domino.
Yeah, there was. It's an interesting thing in Israel.
Yeah.
Israelis are clever and rogue at the same time, and so before McDonald's came to Israel, we had McDavid. and McDavid had to essentially relinquish their
Sure.
brand when McDonald's came in because they started taking them to court on that.
Of course.
Same thing happened with Pizza Domino
Yeah.
and Domino's Pizza.
Yeah.
When Domino's Pizza came into Israel, they wanted to shut down Pizza Domino. And they couldn't because the court essentially told them, dude, these guys were here before.
Yeah.
So you can't
But-
do that. So
but if
now
I-
you still have in Israel Pizza Domino and Domino's Pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I would have to guess, those were people who went to visit New York and were like, dude, this is amazing. We should do this in Israel. And try to copy based on that.
Yeah, I
but
mean-
that's a guess. That's not knowledge.
So the specifics of New York, though, are like it's got to be 18-inch,
Yep,
and
sounds about right.
that's the slice only looks correct on a paper plate if it's from an 18-inch pizza, and it's the tomatoes that are usually on the sweeter, balanced with acidity side that are California tomatoes usually, and then it's low moisture mozzarella, and then pepperoni came about in the 60s, and that was like a thing that became very popular.
in Israel, for kosher reasons, pepperoni was really hard to find.
Yeah, for sure.
So you get pizza with
Olives.
canned tuna
Canned tuna.
and
Yeah, onions.
corn.
Okay, I've made kosher pizza before. Yeah.
No, but the main one was olives.
Yeah, olives was
the main
a big one.
topping.
Yeah.
Delicious. You've got olives in Israel.
Yeah. You got amazing olives in Israel.
Yeah, well, I would love to cook
that was a New York
in
style
Israel
pizza.
because it's a Mediterranean climate, so you can have the core ingredients are all there.
Yes,
and there's an ancient history of flour, and there's a bread culture. It's like for me, that's where I cooked it. The closest, I guess, is I've done projects in Istanbul and in Kuwait. And there's a pre-existing all around the Mediterranean like that. There's a pre-existing bread culture that's very old, and then you have tomatoes, you have olives, these are in the structure, in the fabric of the local cuisine. So it's olive oil also is very big, and so like you're able to. As opposed to when I have to do a project in Taiwan or
Norway.
Well, even Norway, they have a bread culture, but when you're in a place like Indonesia, it's a rice culture, and there's not a history of cheese making. There's not tomato is not a big part of the cuisine. So it becomes very challenging at that point, and you can make anything anywhere if you don't care how much you charge for it. So that's where the real challenge comes in.
I wanna go back to your career and specifically the transition from what you share sounds like humble beginnings, but at some point it seems like you made the decision to become an expert, like a really vertical expert in a specific category. What was the realization or the experience that led to that decision?
Okay, so when you're a pizza, I can go zero in on the moment that happened.
Yes.
Okay, so when you're a pizza maker, you start off. I started off, and it's like there's a path to mastering pizza. You start usually in a restaurant, unless you're like at home and you're going to start learning everything at the same time. When you're in a system in a restaurant, you start off and you learn how to top the pizza.
Okay.
Someone more expert than you has already stretched out the pizza. Someone more expert than you is going to put it in the oven and cook it. So you learn just how to top it. It's like paint by numbers. Okay, then you learn how to stretch out the dough. Then you learn how to use the oven. And especially in your wood-fired pizza place, that's the last step, is learning to master the oven. But
when you say master the oven, it's not just putting the pizza in and out, it's also maintaining the temperature?
Yes, okay. Exactly. But the dough you get, it's usually someone else in the morning is making the dough. So like when I started, it's like you just get the dough. And we had a dough person who was all over the place. And like sometimes you'd have bad dough. And when you've had dough that's bad and you're making pizza, it's not a fun experience.
My cook decided this week to put hot water in the dough in my dough recipe instead of cold water.
Oh, shit.
We had to throw away 3 batches before I understood what was happening.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare.
How hot?
Our tap water in the kitchen runs at about 120.
Oh man.
Okay. Yeah. So you don't want that.
What is the chemistry that this causes? What he just described. Why is it such a disaster?
So essentially, what's going to happen there is the temperature of your dough when it's that warm, and you've got yeast. You're basically like you're kickstarting the fermentation. If you don't, you're not high enough to actually kill the yeast, but you're basically like they're going to start producing over time. So your dough and the gluten development, everything is just happening way, way, way too fast. And it just spins out of control, and the dough is just, it blows up and then it collapses.
Okay.
So, and it basically the yeast, like...
It did not develop any gluten.
No.
That was, I couldn't understand why I don't have gluten development.
Yeah.
Okay.
And keep going.
I want to go back to your
moment.
Yeah,
because it didn't develop gluten because the yeast basically fermented it before it could develop the gluten.
That's what I was feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
So essentially the dough I was getting was all over the place. And so when that guy quit, I was like, okay, this is my opportunity to dive into the dough and make it consistently good. And so that's when I really started to dive into the internet and like cookbooks and just like learn about the dough, which when you're trying to master pizza, dough is the where 80% of your energies are going to go into. That's really the hard part, And then the other part of it that like where I feel like I started to really develop mastery was doing pop-up events and like outdoor pizza oven stuff. I bought a mobile pizza oven in like it's like 2011, something like that. And I started doing events out of state. Like I did an event here in Austin.
Where are you located at the time? I'm
in Brooklyn, but I bought the pizza oven and we did an event here. And I was going to stay here, but then we ended up bringing it back to Brooklyn. But essentially, when you're in a restaurant, you have like a somewhat controlled environment, temperature, you know, your equipment, everything. You kind of have like a little bit familiarity. When you are doing stuff off site, you're dealing with wide ranges of temperature. You are trying to source things that are from a different place. And it's like, I really had to kind of learn what were the boundaries of this thing I was doing. You know, where are the, you know, what happens when it's too hot, when it's too cold. And just trial by error, you know, like one of my first times making pizza here in Austin, I got fresh yeast instead of instant yeast. And the first batch of dough was never fermented, and it was just like a pancake because the fresh
wait
yeast
a second.
was dead.
You're going to solve a mystery to me. Where do you get fresh yeast in Austin?
I wouldn't, because when I got it, it was dead already, because it's not like widely, because it's so hot here.
Yeah.
That, you know,
dude, there's no fresh yeast.
Yeah.
In Israel, it's like in every supermarket.
Yeah, I mean, it's also your max temperature is. I mean, it's more Mediterranean, right? It's like it's gonna be.
No, it's
Israel is hot.
Does it get hot?
Yeah, that's why I'm in Northern California. It's hot.
Even at night.
You have fresh cubes of yeast in every single grocery store in Israel, and here it's nowhere.
Yeah.
So here's a question on that, because that's been frustrating me for over several years now. Now I'm doing my own sourdough, so I know I'm not. I started this August and it's been going very well. But is there a major difference between the fresh yeast and the store bought, you know, instant or,
there's a big difference. So there's
active?
There's a few categories. There's active, dry, instant, and fresh. Active dry, don't use. It's too unreliable. It's for home cooks. It's not like very precise. Instant, you make an adjustment for the lack of water weight that's in fresh yeast, and you should get a pretty reliable product out of it. There's a lot of people that say fresh yeast is a better flavor. I mean, I think there's a lot, you know, are you using pre-ferments? How long are you fermenting? Are you doing a long bulk? I mean, there's all these other factors involved. So I think it's saccharomyces cerevisiae. It's either in a solution of water or it's been dried into these little like pebbles.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. I mean, I think if you can I have a general philosophy of like less processing of every ingredient you're using is better. So yeah, fresh. I would rank fresh yeast above instant.
What do restaurants here do when they need fresh
Everyone's
yeast?
Using instant yeast, I imagine. I mean, I think you could probably get it.
The restaurant you have an opening today. I didn't share that with our listeners, but you're opening a restaurant here today.
Yeah.
What's the name?
Called Poggio.
Poggio. Mm-hmm. Does that have meaning, or is it just a name?
So
of
the
someone?
village that my ancestors immigrated from in Sicily was called Poggio Reale.
I see.
And Poggio is
Corleone.
It's actually pretty near Corleone.
Okay.
In the San Felice Valley in western Sicily. And pretty much there's like a society of Poggioesi who live it's based out of Houston, and they're in Houston, New Orleans, and Brazos River Valley a lot. Like if you go to Poggio Reale, they're like, oh, you're from Texas. Like everyone
know.
Everyone in that village knows that and some went to Australia.
Oh, nice.
As well. But it was like mostly Texas and Australia. But Poggio just means like a little hill, something like that. So we're in the hill country. So,
okay. Well, is there anything specific about the menu that you're proud of?
I mean, I'm proud of all. It's like a greatest hits menu that is no pizza,
lasagna,
no pasta.
Okay.
So it was a very, very small kitchen. I basically wrote the menu based on the kitchen that we had, not the kitchen that I wanted. And so we're doing shrimp scampi, we're doing chicken parm, eggplant parm, which is my grandma's recipe, which is, you know, like in that kind of Italian-American crispy eggplant parm style. There's like a chicken Milanese sandwich. There's stracciatella appetizer. We're making fresh mozzarella. We're doing our house-made mozzarella sticks. And yeah, I mean, pretty simple, you know, like just like I found in Austin, there's a lot of new restaurants and they're really just like trying a little too hard, like doing weird things. Like, and there's nothing weird here. Like our cheeseburger, we have a burger and it's like a really good patty, dry aged patty on a really nice bun with cheddar, onions, and pickles and like a special sauce.
That's it.
And that's it. But it's like, we're going to try to make it like a really good, you know, there's nowhere to hide. Nowhere to hide. Yeah. Well, that's been the biggest challenge is there's nowhere to hide, you know, so we got to like execute everything. But so far, it's been really good.
What is considered a success for a restaurant that opens on the first month or year? Just being profitable, just surviving?
I mean, yeah. I mean, just meeting your payroll and your rent, and then, you know, starting to slowly pay back investors. You know, that's going to be the plan.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll have we're calling it like a neighborhood restaurant. So it's just good, fun, reliable food, you know, in a casual environment with some good wine and some beer. And it's just, you know, Isaac, who I'm working with, is he's got a pizza place here called Samataro. I think they do a really good job.
It feels like in Austin, a lot of the restaurants are doing everything they possibly can to not be perceived as pretentious.
I mean, Austin's just not a pretentious. It shouldn't be a pretentious town. You know, I mean, it's always been a very, you know, kind of young people, college students. Yeah. Like, you know, I mean, it's not Dallas. You know, it's
I wouldn't know, dude. I only been to Dallas twice.
Yeah.
So
we have a saying here in Austin: life's too short to live in Dallas. But that's back when like the only
JFK would agree.
Yeah. But yeah, that's they shouldn't be pretentious. I mean, there's a lot of money in the town now, and so I feel like people are doing things where it's just like a little, I don't like to see the like when you go to New York, there's like, and we were talking about Thomas Keller and like, you know, his restaurants. Like I went to Bouchon in Napa when I was there recently with some chefs that I work with, and we were just blown away. But I mean, it was like the most basic food, you know, but just executed
to the max
perfectly.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Looked beautiful, tasted amazing.
Let's close the loop on your career.
Okay.
Because so you took on the dough.
Yes.
And you mastered the dough.
Yes.
Mostly from what you're saying through internet studies.
Yes.
So there's no story of going to Sicily, learning with a master of 120 years. There's no
it's all
going up the mountain to get the Ten Commandments.
Just trial by error. And
how long did that take?
I mean, it's still happening.
Okay.
I mean, I'm at
You're
this
still
point,
learning.
I mean, at this point, I'm at the point of like 16, 17 years of making pizza straight. And I kind of want to stop and like actually like learn more.
Okay.
Like I feel like I've learned enough at this point to where I now know how much more there is to learn.
What is the next level compared to where you are right now?
I mean, I don't know. Like that's what I feel like it, you know, I mean, it all has to do with the dough. And really the thing with dough is like there's qualities you want it to have in the end, and then there's like how do you get there? There's so many different ways, and it's very frustrating too if you're trying to troubleshoot dough or bread. And you Google, like, why is this happening? And they're like, well, it could be these 9 things. And you're like, oh, great. Yeah, either your dough was too hot, or it was too cold, or it was it's under fermented, or it's over fermented. And it's like, yeah, and I know a lot. Like I recently did a private party with my like newest version of my New York style, and it was so good. And I was just like, God damn, this is like really good. But then, you know, when you go to some other place and you have it and you're like, yeah, I don't even know how they're doing this. This is good. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like,
did you see there's an episode, I think, of Chef's Table with a guy in New Mexico.
Okay.
Arizona,
sorry.
Chris Bianco.
Yes.
Yeah. Which when we started,
what is the
when
story
I started
there?
working at Roberta's, Chris Bianco was often mentioned as like a, like
the god of pizza.
Yeah, or just someone we were like looking to for inspiration, or like a like had the same values.
Do you know what he's doing that makes it so special?
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple. I mean, the guy is, he grew up eating pizza and grew up eating Italian American food. So he has like a passion for it and a palate for it. I mean, anytime someone approaches me and is like, I want to start a restaurant, I have this great idea and I think we're going to make a lot of money, I say, don't do it. Do something else. Like, that's not the reason to open a restaurant. Like, he opened a pizza place because he moved to Arizona and was like, there's no good pizza here. I miss pizza. That's the reason to do it, is because you have a passion or obsession to make something that you want to eat yourself. But then he looked around him, and there's like a couple different ways if you're in Arizona to look at this. You could say, okay, there's no, like, obviously there's not a ton of Italians here. There's not like a big Italian American community. Like, I can't just like get the same ingredients. So like you could either import everything or you could look around you and see what you have. So he did the latter and started using, local flour or flour from the West Coast instead of the East Coast, or using, he has like a famous pistachio pizza because they grow pistachios in Arizona, and like he wanted to kind of have a conversation with local, which to me is what I tried. That's my same philosophy. Okay. And so everywhere in the world I try to leverage local ingredients,
What is the local of Austin that you're leveraging in your new restaurant? I mean, I know beef, but
well, so I mean, we do actually have some good olive oil here.
Okay.
Texas olive oil companies doing really good stuff. Yeah, we have some great local beef.
I had no idea.
We have a steak, a bavette, and we have a really good dry aged burgers. Those are both Texas beef. So really good. We have coming from farmers from here. It's like it's tough to like get, like, we have two closing parts of the season where it's too cold in one part and too hot in another part. So like, people are talking about spring and I'm like, does it feel like spring to you outside? Like, I think we're going to have the first summer ingredients, and then it's going to get too hot for even some, like tomatoes.
Yeah. And
then you have the second summer, which is like you're in the September, October. So I've had my dad grow sungolds for me and stuff. So like, if we can do something like that, but we're trying to we're starting with the basic menu we have. And
are the tomatoes canned?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
fresh tomatoes is not a thing here. I
mean, it's not a thing in Italy. I mean, you have a tomato season and you use fresh tomatoes.
Okay.
But all year round, so the tomato that's in a can it predates industrial canning.
Sure.
So the Italians get the tomatoes from Mexico, right, via Spain. And it takes a couple hundred years for people to even realize that they're like, like a good food source. But so what happens is the original tomato plant is this like tall, bushy plant with like little tiny tomatoes. So the Italians start breeding them to be shorter so that they can hold more fruit. And then that fruit, they breed it to start being bigger. And that's what you get the plum style or the San Marzano style tomato. And that tomato is grown in order to be jarred.
Okay.
Or canned. I mean, and the technology is very simple it goes back 200 or 300 years. Essentially, you harvest it all in August or September. You blanch them in hot water. And then you sanitize your jar in hot water. And then you put the blanched peeled tomatoes in the jar. You seal it. Sometimes they'll put like some basil leaves in there, a little salt, maybe a little citric acid to preserve it. And then they keep those in their basement all year round for their core sauces,
okay.
And there's like this, fresh tomatoes are great in the like 2-month window that they're available. And when I get those, what I try to do is a special that's like, for pizza, I'll just put it on the pizza after it comes out of the oven sometimes, or just like marinate the tomatoes very simply. Usually don't try to make a sauce with it, because it's like you want to treat the tomato super simply, you know?
Yeah. I'm going to start on the questions. We are we are running late, but I'm having so much fun. I hope you are too. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned earlier, this podcast has a community of listeners.
Okay.
Essentially a group on Facebook. And I posted yesterday that you're going to be a guest here.
Let's fire them off.
And most of the questions are going to annoy the hell out of you, so I apologize in advance.
I'm not easily annoyed.
But let's start. Why is an egg not considered a legitimate topping on pizza?
I mean, I don't know where these people are getting their information. Eggs are super common.
I love egg on pizza.
How do you do egg on pizza? What do you do?
So a lot of different ways. I mean, so in Rome, they have a pizza capricciosa, I think it's called, but it's hard-boiled eggs and ham and olives. And then in Sao Paulo, one of the most famous pizzas, pizza portuguese, and it's ham, olives, onions, and hard-boiled eggs.
Hard-boiled eggs.
Hard-boiled eggs, which I'm not a hard-boiled egg guy.
Yeah.
There's also,
do you put the hard-boiled after it comes out of the oven, or do you actually bake?
After it comes out of the oven. Okay. And then, so for me, though, and in my cookbook, pizzas are available at all fine bookstores. And it's on Amazon right now. It's on sale for great Father's Day present. So I have a technique that we developed because we used to put the egg on the pizza. Crack the egg, put it in a coffee cup. You put the pizza in the oven with a little space in the middle. Pull the pizza close to the mouth of the oven and pour it in, and then put the pizza back in. And so you have if it works out well, the white's set up and the yolk is still runny, and it's like
that's almost like the khachapuri.
Yep.
Yes, exactly.
You know what that is?
Yeah, the Georgian. Yeah, pizza,
the Georgian
cheese boat.
Yeah, cheese boat.
It's the same thing, same exact thing. And I've made that with pizza dough.
I assume it's delicious.
It's really good.
Okay.
And so, but in my cookbook, what we developed, it was really hard to time that up when it was busy. So where the yolk was where you wanted it. So I have a technique where we separate the yolks and the whites. We put the white on the pizza before it goes in the oven with the cheese and like meat or whatever it is you want.
Like a binding
and it fluffs up and cooks perfectly in the oven. And then you come out, cut the pizza, and then drizzle the yolk on the hot pizza.
Ooh,
and then you get
sauce.
A bite. You get a bite of egg on every bite. So
I love it. By the way, regarding your book, which is available on Amazon, and I'm going to put a link. Why Tsar? Why Pizza Tsar?
Tsar
is a Russian title.
So what happened? I was at Roberta's. They gave me that title.
Why?
I don't. Well, it's Russian, but I mean, you know the origin of Tsar. Right?
I don't.
Well, Caesar.
Oh, okay. So it's just Caesar.
So it does go back to Italy.
Okay.
Everything. All roads lead to Rome. So yeah, it's a shortening for Caesar.
Okay.
But so essentially in America, a czar is someone who's in charge of
course,
a large organization. And so when Roberta's went from just a pizzeria to having a frozen pizza company, mobile catering, all this stuff, they put me in a position to oversee all those aspects. And my title was Pizza Czar.
Okay. So to explain the next question, I need to share a piece of Israeli culture.
Okay.
We talked about the fact that not everything that has dough and tomato sauce and cheese is a pizza, but in Israel, the simplest way to make pizza for a kid who just wants something for dinner is to open a pita. You know that shit.
Sure.
You're nodding. And then you put some ketchup and you put some cheese.
The ketchup part I'm not nodding to.
Yeah. Apart from the fact that this is not real pizza, is it legit? Can it be yummy?
I mean, anything's legit, you know? Like, do what you follow your rainbow, you know? Like that. I mean, I think, I try not to be super judgmental. I mean, having traveled around the world, worked in 25 different countries, you know, I'm pretty open to different food ways, and you know, if someone else likes it, then there must be something to it. But no, don't get ketchup. At least go get some jarred sauce.
Jarred sauce.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is pineapple so in contention when it comes to pizza?
I think it's like a meme thing, you know, the whole like hating. I'm as an Italian American, pineapple was on pizza was something that other people did. And it just wasn't like, it's not like, oh my God, how dare you? It was just like, hey, all right. I mean, you do all kinds of things I think's weird, you know? But
I think as a kid, I'm a fan of pineapple pizza.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I think it's just because of the sugar, because pineapple wasn't fresh when I was a kid. It was only
in a
canned.
can, yeah.
And so it's very syrupy. It's essentially having dessert on top of your dinner, which is like, why not?
Yeah, I mean, like,
I love
sweet and
dessert
savory
anyway.
is also a thing. Look at, like, you know, General Tso's and, like, I mean, there's all kinds of sweet and savory. And there's pineapple and savory, tacos al pastor, you know, which is, like, you have the spicy and the pork and the fat, and then this pineapple that's roasted. I mean, so there's no technical reason why pineapple shouldn't be on a pizza. I mean, it's a fruit from South America, just like a tomato. So one of them became widespread in use and the other didn't. I think it's just the reason there's so much hate for it is that it's just, it was executed very poorly. Like canned pineapple, you know, is not good. But I in my book, I have a recipe for pineapple on a pizza that I developed when I was in Canada because they invented the Hawaiian pizza allegedly.
Yeah.
And so I did it basically referencing pizza, tacos al pastor. So I roast the pineapple, reduce it, concentrate it, fresh pineapple. We roast it and reduce it, and then we add it with spicy pork and onions and cilantro, and you know it's pretty tasty.
I'm with Deadpool on this one, and I've said that earlier. And I'm saying it again. Pineapple, Canadian bacon, canned or pickled jalapenos on pizza. It's freaking delicious.
If you add jalapenos, then it becomes a multi-dimensional flavor. It's sweet, savory, spicy, acid.
It's fat. Delicious.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. One of our listeners, Gilad, he wants to hear what is the recommended way to open a ball of dough. And he asks, do you work with your hand and fingers? How do you do it?
Well, so yeah, I mean, if you want to make New York style or Neapolitan pizza, you're going to open it by hand. The Neapolitans have a technique where they slap one part down on the table and lift with the other hand up, and then in a motion like that.
This is a little bit like how pizzas are made in
yeah, and actually when you're in, and I've worked a lot with Egyptians and Tunisians, North Africans.
They open pizza in the same way.
And they're incredible.
Amazing.
And if you go to Italy, there's a lot of Egyptian, in the summer, they need people to come in and make pizza for all the tourists, and a lot of them come from North Africa and from the Middle East.
Nice.
And they have that same, I mean, when I was in Kuwait, I saw the way these guys open these flatbreads, and it's like, it's very cool, and it's like the ovens are similar. I mean, it's like you know, it's
in the same family.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of that slapping by hand. In New York, they'll throw it in the air, or those big doughs, and they'll stretch them. They'll like on their fist. In Rome, they'll roll it out with a rolling pin.
Really?
And
doesn't it take out the fluffiness?
Yeah, so it makes like a thin cracker crust. They don't go for fluffy; they go for cracker, thin crust. And so, I mean, I love that style. Pizza tonda and it's really good. So yeah, it just depends on what style you're doing. There's no like right or wrong way, really.
Chagai Wiesel is asking, what is your opinion on the strict, almost religious rules about Neapolitan pizza?
I mean, like so I was just in Italy, and I went to Rome, and I was in Naples. In Rome, it's very flexible. There's like multiple styles of pizza. They're incorporating whole grains into their flour. They're doing all kinds of. I had to like a cockle, like what do you call the thing on top of the rooster? Like that and mushrooms.
Kolbolet.
Yeah.
In Hebrew,
it's kolbolet. Yeah, I don't know how to call it in English.
That and mushrooms on a pizza or crown. Rooster crown.
That is a very specific topping.
Yeah. So like they do all kinds of wild stuff there. And then we went to Naples, and it's a little, rigid, a little boring, kind of a lot of the same thing. And that's their thing, man. And that's
there's a lot.
They invented it.
They're how angry Italians are when you.
Yeah, but see, the thing is
do they actually get angry?
Well, they're very passionate about food, and they have a good reason to be passionate. It's I mean, all over the world. Like you have to put yourself in their position. They're here in this country, Italy. They have this, one of the most amazing histories anywhere in the world. I mean, like, I would say, like. architecture of food, like, you know, I mean, it's an incredible history they have.
Yes.
And they are obsessed with food. They talk about food all the time. They are, you know, I mean, it's a big, like, passion for them. The Italian food industry is massive. You have their products all over the world.
Yeah.
It's imitated all over the world. And so the big difference between Americans and maybe Israelis is the same thing, but like, there's a flexibility in like words of things, you know? So like, oh, the way I'm going to do this and it's my take on this. Okay. That does not exist.
Yeah. Your take doesn't matter.
No, I mean, it's like their whole idea is like, just call it something else. Okay. You want to make carbonara and you want to add ham and parsley and egg yolk on it and cream. Call it something else. Make whatever you want. It's not that you can't make anything you want or you can't cook pasta, but if you call it a name means something in Italian, and it's a very strict definitional thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's their thing. But they also have all these rules that they break all the time, like the no seafood and cheese thing. They do it all the time. There's all kinds of
oil in the dough.
They do that all the time as well. Yeah, of course.
Okay. I have two questions, one from Reem and the other one from Sela Yair. Some tips and rules of thumb to making pizza in a home oven that doesn't get above 300 Celsius.
Yeah, so in my book, I show you how to trick out your home oven. Well, one thing is pan.
What do you mean trick? How do you trick your oven to be hotter?
So what you're going to do is go to Home Depot and buy a bunch of unglazed quarry tiles. They're actually mostly made in Texas by a company called Dow Tile. And it's an all natural product. It's like, you know,
clay.
Yeah, it's clay. It's baked and you get the unglazed ones, unglazed quarry tiles. They're like less than $1 each. And you do a double stack layer on one rack, on the bottom rack, with room on either side for the heat to come up. And then you go all the way across on the top rack and you completely block the heat from the top. So you basically create a sandwich of heat that you're going to cook in. And it's going to radiate heat down from the top, and then you're going to build a thermal battery on the bottom. So it's a bad conductor that holds heat and then gives it back slowly through conduction. So you'll have radiant heat. You'll have the convection of the hot air coming up from the bottom and then hitting the top and kind of swirling around in there. And you create an oven within the oven. You can get the surface of that, if you preheat for a couple hours, can be like 575, 600 if you set your oven to 500.
And that's it. That's going to make it hotter.
You can make like a New York style pizza and it'd be perfect.
Interesting.
And then the other trick I say for that lower temperature is just, you're not going to make Neapolitan pizza. There's no trick to make Neapolitan. You have to, but there's lots of
You need
great
1,000-degree oven.
And there's lots of great backyard propane ovens that you can buy or electric
dude, we're talking about apartments in Israel, so no.
So, well, there's
the Uni,
and you can
Uni,
get the
Uni can fit on propane on this table.
Yeah, or there's electric ones like the Breville or the Uni Volt, But anyways, forget about that. If you don't want to go, if you want to get into that area, you're already a nerd and you're going to find those. But if you want to make pizza at home, the best thing is pan pizza.
Really?
The temperatures are lower that you need, and it's just way more forgiving. You don't have to worry about sliding it off.
Cast iron pan.
Just a pan on the fire, or in the oven.
In the oven.
Okay.
On the rack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Achaz Israeli is asking the biggest question of all: thin crust or thick crust for you?
I mean, I like both, I love...
What is the mood of a thin crust as opposed to a thicker?
I think when I think of a thin crust, I think of like going to the pizzeria, sitting down, and ordering a whole pizza, and it comes and you eat it hot and fresh right there, because it's not going to be good for delivery. It's not going to be good for takeout. Like
thin crust.
Super thin crust is not... It loses heat very quickly.
So before you keep answering, where do you draw the line now? This is thin crust. This is thick crust.
I think
because New York travels in delivery pretty well.
Yeah, and that's not to me like super thin crust. Okay. That's like New York. It's to get it crispy. There's actually some layering there, and it's a little thicker. That's like they would call like a hand tossed crust or something. Okay. So like medium. And then thick would be like Sicilian or Altalia or Detroit. And those are the mood for that is just like, you're hungover, or you just like, you wanted a delivery. You want to.
I like the fact that hungover is a mood.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a physical definition of alcohol deficiency. It's just a mood.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm in the mood of being hungover.
Exactly. And you just want like just something a little more naughty, and like you're gonna eat it, and then you're probably gonna crawl back into bed or sit on the couch.
What is your opinion of Costco pizza?
It's low. Pretty low.
Fair enough. So in terms of fast food, map this out for me.
Okay.
Costco would be the lowest.
I mean,
if you compare
Little Caesars?
Costco to
Little Caesars at least is
Little Caesars, for our listeners, is a fast food chain that sells a full margarita pizza for $5.
Yeah, exactly. So at least Little Caesars is doing like, community service.
Fair enough.
And like I'll never trash talk Little Caesars because like they go to the hood and they offer affordable pizza. And
I would say Costco is doing the same. I mean, when you look at calories
but
per
you have to have
dollar,
a Costco membership.
That's
to get
true.
inside.
That's true.
There's a little
No,
gatekeeping
not for the
there.
food court.
Not for the
Oh,
food
really?
court. Yeah,
No,
Okay.
you can go.
You can go
$9.99 for a whole pie.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the in terms of calories per dollar, Costco beats Little Caesar.
Yeah, I don't know. I have not. I think I've had it once, and it was very doughy, and
It's very doughy.
yeah.
Yes, it's very doughy.
It's not executed very well. No, it's not very good.
So okay, if you only had to go to chains,
Yeah.
how would you rank the chains for pizza? What is the lowest? What is the best option from your perspective? I know it's hard, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess it depends on what's a chain, Like,
So let's do
like how many-
Pizza Hut.
okay, yeah, give me.
Pizza Hut, Domino's, Costco, Little Caesar. What's the name of the one? Papa John's. Let's stick with those.
Okay. I mean, Pizza Hut's very saddening to me because I have really fond memories of like 80s, 90s Pizza Hut. And it's like through the course of multiple private equity acquisitions and turnovers, it's been a race to the bottom of terrible ingredients. So Pizza Hut is on the bottom for me just because of
On the bottom.
Yeah,
Worse than Costco.
because
They have ruined your childhood memory.
because when
it's nostalgia.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
When you like something, you know how good it can be, and then it's bad. It's more.
I'll never forgive them for ruining my youth.
That's a rage inducement as opposed to indifference.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But I guess, I guess it depends. Some people consider indifference to be worse than hate. At least hate, there is an emotion in there. But so I would say Pizza Hut in the bottom, and then Papa John's right there because it's just not. I don't get it. I don't like it. It makes me feel gross. And then we'll do Costco, and then I guess
I'm sensing Domino's on top.
Tied from fifth from the bottom are those two.
I mean, Domino's. Like the thing with Domino's is like, one of the big differences between all these things from a technical perspective is dough management technique. So like, Pizza Hut is using frozen. Little Caesars makes all the dough in store with a premix. Domino's makes pizza the same way I do. They have a central commissary kitchen where they make fresh dough and then they distribute it. That's the way. I'm a partner in a chain in Sao Paulo, Brazil. That's exactly what we do. We have a central commissary. We make fresh dough. We put it on a truck, refrigerated truck, and we send it to each location.
How far is the farthest location from that?
I mean, they're all within the city of Sao Paulo.
Okay.
Which is a very big city.
Yeah.
So Domino's is doing that. I mean, it's like fresh, like the pan pizza, you could do worse than the pan pizza. And I do kind of like their thin crust cracker pizza, which is, to me, I don't even know how I wouldn't know how to make that. If you like put a gun to my head, I'm like, it's some science technology. I don't know. It's like a cracker pre-made thing. I don't know how they do it. But I kind of like that, the cracker crust one. Their regular pizza is fine. It's not the best. The pan pizza is not bad.
Okay,
so I'm putting Domino's on top with specifically their pan pizza.
What is your opinion of deep dish pizza?
Like Chicago deep dish?
Yes.
It's
something. I don't know if you would call it pizza, but it's something.
It's a casserole.
Yeah. So there's two. There's deep dish where they do like that pastry crust filled with cheese.
Yeah.
Filled with cheese sauce on top.
Yeah, but then they also have like a pan pizza like Pequods, where it's like a focaccia, like it's actually it's big, thick, but it's mostly dough. That's not so bad. I like a pan pizza.
Okay.
The deep dish one with the pastry crust one, I'm not a fan of.
Okay.
You know, they have a thin crust cracker pizza that the Chicagoans will say is the real Chicago pizza, and that the deep dish is just for tourists.
I see. I'm scared of even watching the videos of it made. It looks like such a disgusting mess.
It's a big casserole that's great in winter in Chicago.
Is it now? Did you have one ever?
I personally love it for what it is. I love deep dish pizza for what it is. You eat a slice and you're stuffed for a week. And if it's winter in Chicago and you don't want to get out and you can afford just being on the couch for the next 4 hours and you like casserole and cheese, it's great.
Yeah.
Don't try and hold it by hand.
Okay.
Don't call it pizza. Call it a casserole, and it's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Dude, what's next for you? So you're launching this restaurant.
Yeah.
You live in New York. What's the
I
next?
fly back tomorrow, and then I drive to New Hampshire to help set up a pizza program in like a resort in New Hampshire. It should be pretty fun. And then I go to Italy, where I'm meeting my client from Sydney, and we're going to do a Roman pizza. We already did a New York East Coast pizza tour, New York, New Haven, New Jersey, and so we're going to do a Roman pizza tour research trip. And then I'm going to go up to Milan, where I have some meetings about a possible pizzeria there, and then I fly to Mumbai to set up a New York style pizza shop in Mumbai.
How many days a year do your kids get to see you?
I mean, it depends. It's like, sometimes I'll be home for a stretch of 3 or 4 weeks, and sometimes I'll be gone for, a month or two. I mean, they see me a lot more than when I was a chef at a restaurant, I'll tell you that much. Like when I was at Roberta's, I was there all the time.
That's a hard life.
Yeah, I mean, people travel for work. It's a thing.
But for you feel that you found your zone? This is
now it's working. Yeah, it's great. I love learning about different cultures and different people, and I have all these places I want to still make pizza, or I still want to work, and I want to make pizza on every continent, and I'm almost there. And
what's missing? Which continent?
I have a friend who's a
Australia
chef
and
in
Africa.
Okay.
And
I have
Antarctica.
a friend who's a chef in Antarctica.
Yeah, so that's the last one. So once I'll do Australia this fall, and then Africa I'm still waiting on. I've had a lot of talks with people. I was almost going to go to South Africa. It's just like the budget thing, but I was talking to some people in Cairo, but then the currency there collapsed, and we'll make it happen somewhere.
I have to ask because this is sometimes a political podcast. Do you have an opinion on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
My wife is Jewish,
okay,
and she has family in Israel.
Okay, that pretty much puts you on a specific side.
Yeah.
Okay. Did anybody get hurt on October 7th?
No.
Good.
But she has a cousin who's in the IDF, and he actually became he went viral with one of his messages of positivity, and he was on like Fox News and stuff like that. He's a body collector, so he has to go back and pick up all the pieces so they can have like proper burials and things like that. It's his job in the IDF, and so he had to go into full duty, and but he was going on TikTok and basically saying these messages of we're gonna get through this, and let's I don't know. So
is there anything in her side of the family Jewish kitchen that you found interesting or exciting or inspiring?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we actually kind of commiserated on a couple different things as as an Italian American, and then as Jewish Americans. Like she was in Seattle, which was pretty monoculturally white. Austin when I was young was pretty white Protestant.
Yeah.
And so there was a couple things where they make a dish that's they call it eggplant dip, and it's caponata. It's literally Sicilian caponata. And I was like, this is caponata. And they're like, oh, we just make this, so, and then artichokes, we both talked about how we had friends who had never had an artichoke before. And as a Jewish or Israeli person, that's a crazy concept. I think as an Italian, it's a crazy concept to never have an artichoke.
I think if Ashkenazi Jews don't know artichokes.
Really?
No,
Yes.
but Ashkenazi Jews are Eastern European, mostly heavily Poland, Latvia.
Her families, they're all Ukraine, so like Odessa.
Yeah, so Odessa.
And they had artichoke at home?
Yeah.
In
Ukraine. The summer there is
Really?
you can grow. I mean, it's think about all the wheat that comes out of Ukraine. That needs good summers. Artichokes like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so those kind of like and just like being kind of like on the surface same, but having this cultural difference back home, you know, kind of thing where, you know, I think, you know, some of those, like I love her parents. I like a lot. They're just the greatest people.
Nice.
We like to spend summers with them. You know, I had some like the stuffed cabbage Caracas or whatever it's called. Like it's Caracas. I don't know. It's like Ukrainian Jewish food. I don't know.
Stuffed cabbage.
It's good. You know, I mean, it's, you know, Italian food is pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I mean, it's like pierogies I had, you know, for the first time, really.
Don't get me started. Okay,
Yeah.
Anthony Falco, thank you so
Yeah,
much
before
for being
we're
here.
done. Usually at the end of these podcasts, there are recommendations, and I'm
Yeah.
being very, very selfish here because I'm planning some trips. I need recommendation for a pizzeria in Tokyo
Got you.
and in London
Got you.
and in New York.
I got you.
And then I have some recommendations as well for books.
So
But
go for it.
I just bought the Noma guide the Noma Guide for Fermentation.
Noma,
the restaurant, the
Danish
Danish
restaurant.
which is I highly recommend that book.
Yeah,
It's incredible.
You follow Zilber on Instagram too. His Instagram's great.
He's great. And then the Pizza Czar book
course.
is
Thank you.
is there. But yeah, Tokyo, London, New York. I need recommendations for pizzerias.
Now, so Tokyo actually has some of the best pizza in the world. Tokyo style pizza has become a real phenomenon, and it all starts with Sirenkan. Okay, and then they basically had the apprentice system. So then people would work at Sirenkan and then start their own places. So you have Sirenkan and then Savoy, and then PST Tamaki. So PST is short for Pizza Studio Tamaki, and that's also very good. There's a bunch of new places, but if you go to Kyoto, there's a place where he used to work there called Il Populardo. Also really, really great.
Awesome.
But Sirenkan, Savoy, those are the two you really want to go to. London right now has become like a big scene for kind of New York style crispy new wave pizza with the electric ovens. You have Vincenzo's, Gracie's, Crisp W6. All these are really, I think, highly recommend. And just the pizza scene in London is actually very progressive. And then for New York right now, like my favorite recommendation is the downtown pizza triangle of L'Industrie, Mama's 2, and Lucia. Like they're all right there next to each other, and they're just all great in the New York style.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Really, really, really great.
ועד כאן הפרק, ושוב תודה גדולה לאיתמר רבינוביץ' שעזר לארגן את הפרק הזה, ושבלעדיו הוא לא היה קורה, ולא הייתי מכיר את אנתוני. אני רוצה להקדיש את החפירה שלי היום לאיזושהי הצצה שאני אשמח לתת למאזינים שלנו, לאיך נראה הסכסוך הישראלי-פלסטיני מהמקום שבו אני נמצא. אז אני אתחיל בכמה אנקדוטות. קודם כל, לפני כמה שבועות, מישהו בטוויטר תייג אותי באיזה פוסט, וכשהלכתי לראות במה מדובר, אז ראיתי שהוא מנסה לשדל יוצרי תוכן בעולם הגיימינג, להשתמש בכלים שלו, שמתחרים בכלים של החברה הקודמת של Stream Elements, דרך זה שהוא מסביר להם שהמייסדים של חברת Stream Elements הם ציונים, ולכן אסור להשתמש בכלים שלהם. They're Zionists. זה ככה, כאילו שבעולם היום מספיק להיות מתויג כציוני, וכבר אתה הופך להיות פרסונה נון גרטה. אז קראתי קצת את התגובות, ולמרות שהיה לפוסט הזה הרבה טראפיק, התגובות היו בסך הכל רבע אינטליגנטיות, אבל זה גרם לי להתחיל לתהות מתי העניין הזה של להיות ציוני וציונות, הפך להיות כל כך מגונה במערב. איך קרה המהפך הזה? כי אני לא שמתי לב שזה קרה. בעוד שהסכסוך הישראלי-פלסטיני מתנהל במלוא עוזו, אז העניין הציוני לא הונף אף פעם בתור דגל אנטי-ציוני. ואז התחלתי לדבר עם חבר'ה אמריקאים שאני מכיר, ולהפתעתי הרבה, רובם לא ידעו אפילו מה המשמעות של המילה ציוני. אגב, אני די בטוח שגם הבן אדם שכתב את אותו פוסט בטוויטר, לא באמת ידע מה זה ציוני. והלכתי ודליתי מוויקיפדיה, כמה עמודים נבחרים שיעזרו להם להבין מה זה ציונים ומה זה ציונות, ואיך נולדה התנועה האידיאולוגית הזאת. שאגב, צריך לומר, גם חלק לא מבוטל מהיהודים בעולם אינם ציונים. זאת אומרת, גם בקרב היהודים בעולם יש דעות לכאן ולכאן, ודי חלוקות, על האם מדינה לעם היהודי בארץ ישראל היא הפתרון הטוב ביותר לתקומתו של העם היהודי לדורותיו. ודרך זה הגעתי לעמודי הוויקיפדיה של הסכסוך הישראלי-פלסטיני באופן כללי. ולהפתעתי הרבה, הסכסוך הישראלי-פלסטיני כפי שהוא מתואר בוויקיפדיה באנגלית, שונה מאוד מהעמודים בעברית, ובעצם מהאינדוקטרינציה שאנחנו עברנו בילדות שלנו למהו הסיפור. בלי להיכנס כרגע למי צודק, ואצל מי הנרטיב הזה הוא נכון או לא נכון, אני חושב שחשוב לישראלים להכיר את עמודי הוויקיפדיה באנגלית, שבעצם כשאתם חושבים על זה, וויקיפדיה הוא המקור כמעט מספר אחת לחיפושים ולמידע על ידי אנשים, אפילו רבע אינטליגנטים, זאת אומרת, מן הסתם בשלב ראשון, כשמישהו רוצה לצרוך מידע בנושא מסוים, אז הוא אולי יתחיל ממדיה חברתית, אולי יתחיל מוידאוים ביוטיוב, או בתוצאות חיפוש בגוגל, אבל וויקיפדיה הוא אחד המקורות החשובים שאתה תעבור בדרך. מלחמת 48, או כמו שהיא נקראת בוויקיפדיה, 1948 Palestine War, שימו לב, לא מלחמת העצמאות של ישראל, 1948 Palestine War, מוגדרת בעצם בתור סכסוך צבאי בין שתי אוכלוסיות אזרחיות שחיו בשטח ארץ ישראל המנדטורית. הוא מתואר כמעט כמלחמת אזרחים, זאת אומרת, אמנם לא הייתה מדינה, אבל למעשה הוא מתואר כמלחמת אזרחים. והמאמר אפילו נפתח במילים, This article is about the entire conflict in Palestine in 1948. For the Civil War phase, see 1947-1948 Civil War in Mandatory Palestine. אותו Civil War בעצם מוצג בתור התהליך של הסכסוך שהוביל עד להקמתה של מדינת ישראל, ואז החלק הבא אחריו הוא ה-1948 Arab-Israeli War, שזה כבר המלחמה של ישראל בצבאות ערב. אז המלחמה בפלסטין בעצם מוצגת בתור סכסוך של שתי קבוצות אתניות שגרו באותו שטח, ברגע שהשלטון הבריטי החליט לעזוב, שזה בעקבות ההחלטה של האום ב-47. אבל צריך לשים לב לעניין הזה, מכיוון שברגע שאתה מבין, וככה זה מה שקרה לי בעצם, ברגע שאתה מבין שמלחמת העצמאות של ישראל ב-1948 לא מתוארת כלפי העולם, לפחות אליבא דה ויקיפדיה, לא מתוארת בתור הנרטיב הישראלי הצודק בעיני עצמו שאנחנו מכירים, של מעטים מול רבים, של צבאות ערב שתקפו אותנו ואנחנו נלחמנו בחזרה. אז מן הסתם, כל ההסתכלות על הסכסוך הישראלי-פלסטיני בישראל מקבלת זווית שונה לחלוטין. זאת אומרת, שתי קבוצות רבו, הלכו מכות בעקבות זה שהבריטים הסתלקו מהאזור, ומשם מתגלגלים מה קרה הלאה. זה היה מאיר עיניים עבורי, הגילוי הזה. זה היה מאיר עיניים מהסיבה הפשוטה שזה, אני יכול כישראלי, כיהודי, כמישהו שגדל במערכת החינוך הישראלית, אני יכול להבין שמה שחינכו אותנו לאורך כל הילדות, זה לא הנרטיב שכל העולם מחזיק בו, שרוב העולם מחזיק בו. ואין בכלל מה להיכנס כרגע לשאלה מי צודק. זאת אומרת, בוודאי שאני בתור ישראלי, יהודי, ציוני, דוגל בנרטיב הישראלי. לא רק בגלל שחינכו אותי אליו, אלא בגלל שאני מכיר את ההיסטוריה של הציונות, ואני מכיר את הסיבה, ואני חושב שמדינה בגבולות ישראל היא פתרון טוב לעם היהודי, ולכן זה פתרון שאני מסכים איתו, והתקיפה של ארצות ערב ב-1948, היא באמת אקט בזוי שאין כדוגמתו, וכל הנכבה שקרתה לאחר מכן, זה הבוהו הגדול ביותר בהיסטוריה, לפחות זה שאני מכיר. אבל, מכיוון שמה שמעניינת אותי בדעת הקהל, זה לא מי צודק, אלא מה אנשים חושבים, אז לדעת מה אנשים חושבים, זה דבר חשוב. להכיר במה אנשים חושבים, זה דבר חשוב. לדעת שבעצם רוב העולם לא יודע מה זאת הציונות, ואיך הגענו לסכסוך הישראלי הפלסטיני כמו שהוא נראה כרגע. כי כרגע זה באמת נראה שישראל היא גוליית והפלסטינים הם דוד, לכן גם כל המסכנים וה-marginalized populations הם פתאום בעד free Palestine. מה יכול להיות יותר נחמד מ-free Palestine? זה חופש, זה שוויון, זה זכויות אדם, זה כל הדברים שאנחנו יודעים שפלסטין, או הרשות הפלסטינית בגדה וחמאס בעזה לא באמת מייצגים בשום צורה, ואין להם גם שום אספירציות כאלה, אבל זה מרגיש כמו להיות בצד הנכון. זה גם מדלג על משוכה מאוד מאוד חשובה, שלפחות אני רוצה שהמאזינים יכירו בה, אין שום משמעות יותר ל-67. אין לזה שום משמעות. כשהפלסטינאים בעולם מדברים על מדינה פלסטינית, הם לא מדברים על מדינה בגבולות 67, הם לא מדברים על פתרון שתי מדינות לשתי עמים, הם אומרים free Palestine, והם מדברים על from the river to the sea, ומבחינתם, המטרה של הנרטיב הזה, היא להחזיר את ההיסטוריה אחורה לאותה נקודה שבה האום קיבל את ההחלטה שלו ב-47 על חלוקת ארץ ישראל לשתי מדינות, אחת יהודית ואחת ערבית, ולמחוק את המדינה היהודית שם. לשם הכוונה. ולכן אין שום משמעות, לא לשטחים הכבושים, ולא לנרטיב שתי מדינות לשתי עמים ב-67. יש משמעות רק מהבחינה הפרקטית של איפה יש ריכוזי אוכלוסייה, ואם באמת רוצים להגיע למצב של פתרון לשתי מדינות לשני עמים, אז לריכוזי אוכלוסייה יש משמעות, כי זה עניין פרקטי, זה עניין של מי צריך לזוז מאיפה לאיפה, כדי שיהיה אפשר לצייר את גבולות שתי המדינות האלה, ולקחת את זה משם. במובן הזה, אני למשל, למרות שבעיני רוב מאזיננו, ואולי גם בעיני רוב האנשים שידברו איתי, אני כנראה נתפס כשמאלני, אני חושב שמדינת ישראל אין שום סיבה שהיא לא תספח אליה את השטחים של גבולות 67, אם כבר זה יעשה טוב למדינת ישראל יותר מכל דבר אחר. ולמה אני מספר לכם את כל הדבר הזה? כי אני חושב שהכישלון הגדול ביותר שמדינת ישראל חובה בסיפור של 107 באוקטובר ועד היום, הוא כישלון הסברתי, כישלון דיפלומטי בינלאומי. והוא נובע מהכישלון העוד יותר גדול של ממשלות נתניהו לדורותיהם, לייצר בעולם נרטיב שהוא פרו-ישראלי, ולשמר בעצם את המומנטום הפרו-ישראלי המטורף, שממשלות השמאל, עד רבין, ואולי גם קצת אחרי, ברק, וואי פלנטיישן וכו', הצליחו לבנות בקרב מדינות המערב. אנשים שמאזינים לפודקאסט הזה, אולי ברובם צעירים מכדי לזכור, אבל כשמדינת ישראל הייתה בתהליך השלום, היא זכתה לעדנה כלכלית ודיפלומטית בינלאומית, שאני לא ראיתי כל החיים שלי. אולי הדבר היחיד שמתקרב לזה היה הנקודה שבה עשו שלום עם מצרים, והתחילו לפרק את החרם הערבי. אבל את היתרון הזה בזירה הדיפלומטית הבינלאומית, נתניהו, ואני נוקב בשמו מכיוון שאני רואה בו אחראי אישי וישיר לעניין הזה, חרב לחלוטין, ואם יש מקום שמדינת ישראל יכולה להתחיל לשקם את העתיד שלה, זה משם. זהו, אין לי יותר מדי מה להרחיב, רציתי רק להפנות זרקור לפינה הלא מוכרת והדי חשוכה הזאת, של העולם ושל האינטרנט, ושתדעו. אז תודה שהאזנתם, ושוב תודה לאיתמר על הפרק המקסים שזה היה, ונתראה בפרק הבא.